We all set?
Yep.
All right. Call this meeting to order. The Selma City Council regular meeting, July 15th, 2019, 6:01 p.m. Our invocation will be led by Chaplain Dale Lehman of the Adventist Medical Center.
Shall we bow our heads? Father in heaven, it's a nice hot summer. We're so thankful for the rich blessings you've poured out. Our canals are full of water, and millions of trees bursting with fruit and lush green. You have blessed us with increasing prosperity and growth here, but most of all, you've blessed us with wonderful people. Please give us the gratitude to remember that all these good things are from you. And tonight in this very meeting, we pray for your wisdom to use the resources you've given in the way that will be the greatest blessing to the maximum number of people. Thank you so much for being here with us. In the name of our Savior Jesus, we pray. Amen.
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 Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Salute.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Avalos,
Here.
Councilmember Guerra,
Here.
Councilmember Trujillo, Mayor Pro Tem Franco,
Here.
Mayor Robertson.
Here, potential conflicts of interest. Any council member who has a potential conflict of interest may announce the item now and recuse themselves from discussing or voting on the matter. Moving on to oral communications. At this time, any member of the public may address the city council on any item within its jurisdiction, but not on the agenda. No action or discussion will be taken on any of the items raised during oral communications. Items of interest will be reviewed for further consideration by the city manager. You're asked to please keep your remarks to 3 minutes or under. Would anyone like to come forward at this time?
I always like to come. I always like to be first. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Let's see. Just last week, Boys and Girls Club, we took 40 members to Blackbeard's. Some members were on the bus, and they were saying, "What's Blackbeard's? Is it a lake? Are we going to a lake, Mark?" I'm like, "No, it's a family entertainment center." And they're like, "What's there?" And I'm like, "There's different rides." So it was really great this time. That's one of our big trips that we do every year. We get transported with the help of Moses Stites from Fresno County Rural Transit. He helps us out. He transports all the kids to Blackbeard's and back to Selma. So that's a partnership that we have with Moses going on for 3 years now. But like I said, it's always a blessing, and it's always a great thing when that trip comes up and we get to take different club members, because those club members are members that have never been to Blackbeard's, let alone get on some rides. This time around we got to use the big race cars that they have at Blackbeard's. So it's just Boys and Girls Club. A total of 400 people were out there from all different clubs throughout Fresno County. Your Selma Boys and Girls Club, like I said, we took 40 members along with myself and staff members and volunteers. So it's always a great thing when we do that in every summer. I left everybody an invitation. July 27th is our big car show, as I would like to see each and every one of you come out. I know Mr. Trujillo, we were talking, and he told me he wouldn't be able to make it because it's his birthday weekend. But we'll keep you there, and we'll mention you. Like I said, I have a special surprise for the city of Selma. That's why I'm giving everybody an invitation. Mike, I also invited you to come out. And I didn't forget about you, Shane. I always think about you. I have an invitation for you too. But once again, it's always a great pleasure to come up here, and I'm very pleased and very proud to be your unit director for the Selma Boys and Girls Club. So I look forward to seeing you guys in 2 weeks on a Saturday. Let's hope and pray that Our weather's not over 100 degrees, but we will have some good food vendors out there. I have Dutch Brothers Coffee coming to Selma. So that's, if you haven't had Dutch Brothers Coffee, it's a little bit different than Starbucks. So they'll be coming out. We'll get proceeds from their sales also. Everything is going to be going back to the Boys and Girls Club to help offset what we request through the city. But once again, thank you and have a good night.
Of the good
Thank you,
work.
Mark.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Mark.
Anybody else for oral communications tonight? Okay, with that, we'll move on to special presentations, and the first one is our employee introduction. Christina Arias, Human Resources Manager.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I'd like to introduce Christina Arias. She will be the new Human Resource Manager for the City of Selma, taking my position when I retire out in a few weeks.
Pleasure.
Christina was born in Tulare. However, she's lived her entire life in Exeter. She is married and has 3 children, 1 son and 2 daughters. Her education, she has a Bachelor's of Science degree in Business Administration. She will be starting a master's program in Business Administration in September at Fresno State. Most recently, she was employed by E.M. Thorpe. It is a truck dealership that has 4 different locations. She was hired as their HR manager, and she worked for them for 16 and a half years, and she developed their HR department from the ground up for all 4 locations and oversaw 240 employees was the maximum employees that she had at one time. So Christina comes to us with a lot of experience, and I believe that she will be a great asset to the City of Selma. Christina?
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm very grateful, and I'm looking forward to being here and working for the City of Selma. Thank you.
All right. You've got some big shoes to fill. Tesla's done a great job as our HR director, and so we look forward to working with you, even though we're sad to see Tesla move on to the next phase of your life, and wish you all the best in that. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to the Community Development Block Grant presentation.
Good evening. It's that time of year again. We're getting set to put our application into the county for our CDB allocation. And so I'm just here to have a brief discussion with you folks to get guidance as to which project we would like to move forward with on that application.
Okay.
My understanding is that there's desire to work on the downtown beautification project. That is certainly a project that we can move forward with. I have cleared that as a potential project with the county. But to back up 1 year, just to make sure everybody's thinking about everything, we did talk about this year's project. We're doing the connectivity project in the alphabet streets and the west side of town. That project will go forth when we go into contract later this year. And so that is another possibility to extend that process with paving projects in those same vicinities. Those are the primary projects we're looking at this time, and I'm just here to solicit input from the council and Mr. Mayor and see if you have any other projects in mind, or if one of those is how you want to move forward.
And I just want to clarify that our next presentation will be on the 5-year consolidated plan. The county is going to be seeking input on kind of the higher level as to what types of projects we might want to see generally in the 5-year consolidated plan. But we wanted to bring to you a recommendation for 2021 funding, the annual action plan, and the project based upon your priorities that you have set here in council meetings and strategic planning session we've had, that the downtown revitalization beautification does fit very nicely into what is offered through CDBG. So,
And just to clarify, we're not looking for any formal resolution or action, just looking for your guidance.
When will that formal resolution and guidance need to be?
The
Given.
application is due in about 2 weeks, so I'm not, like I said, I'm not looking for any, there is no formal resolution necessary.
You just want guidance tonight?
Just looking for guidance so I can move
Direction.
forward with the application process,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you. Does council have any input on this?
I think the city manager should, you have a list of projects that could reflect our goals, right?
yes, I would recommend that we go ahead and do the downtown revitalization for the 2021 annual action plan. It does fit in with the goals that you shared in the strategic planning, and that would mean sidewalk improvements, the tree wells being redone, and putting in properly sized trees, repairing the electrical, the irrigation, lighting, and speakers
system,
for a sound system. So all of that sounds like it will work under CDBG. We get an annual allocation of approximately $230,000, and that would allow us to make pretty good headway in downtown. So the lights that have been done in the interim are lovely, and I think this is something we can look to in 2021 as an application that would get us even, further in our priorities.
And
Maybe-
that's 7/1/21? That's when the money would be available,
Be-
7/1/21 fiscal year?
7/1/20.
7/1/20.
Right.
That's when the money would be available.
That would be the fiscal year. The CDBG program year usually starts in October, and we would probably not get the allocation until December, January, when they finally approve it through HUD and the county.
Contracts typically hit around December, if not correct.
It's kind of a,
December.
yeah.
And then it's at that point that we're able to move forward with preparing plans and then bidding the project and so on. So it would be the following spring when the project could get started.
So you would start on the design work for the tree wells and the speakers. You would really get started around between August and September of next year. Is that right? Looking for the operations
this
that
year.
commence in 2021.
Right, it would be towards the end of next year, yes.
And city manager, just to clarify, downtown is Front, Secret, High Street, right, McCall?
Right.
It's not just High Street, it's the surrounding streets around it.
Correct, and we would have to see exactly which areas we can do within the allocation we receive, so, how far $230,000 would go, and we could, but it is not just High Street, we're talking about Second and the front streets, and,
Front and Second.
Yeah, because Second is the corridor
Right.
that leads
Entry.
people into our city. So, I mean, it's really important to have
And we can
improvements there
prepare
make it look
plans,
nice.
with ad alternates and such, so that we make the most use of the money and facilitate choosing the priorities prior to issuing the actual construction project to a contractor. And then if we design more than they can build, we'll have that for another project or another year.
So you would be back here a year from now conceivably saying, well, might need a little more for that. And we can
Or
decide
looking-
at that time.
Or looking for other funding opportunities, certainly.
Or looking for other funding opportunities for downtown.
Is
Like,
that-
I think we talked about making an economic opportunity zone as well. Would the financial incentives go under this, or would that be under another program? For
We're-
people who want to, paint their buildings and get some sort of reimbursement.
We
on
are
a
looking
basis.
at other funding opportunities for that, so there's a grant we're looking at, and I think CDBG has some other things for housing-related improvements we'll talk about in a few minutes. So to answer your question, other funding opportunities. This would be strictly for the capital improvement project.
Okay.
And we just wanted to make sure that council was in agreement that this is still a priority project for you before we submit the application.
Okay. Well, definitely is here. Is everybody good with this? Moving forward with this? Anybody from the public have any input on using block grant money for downtown? Okay.
Now, Scott, next question. Now, that would cover the corridor coming into town, like from Berry Park inward, or
We have to
how's?
designate an official downtown, like from Whitson.
Yeah, if we're gonna do it, we gotta do it right.
Yeah, and we would.
Because
would-
we're gonna, in the future plans, we're gonna do that, Golden State corridor. You know, we
bet.
wanna make sure that, that all the ducks are in a row there, you know.
That's Measure C, definitely.
Yeah.
The county's gonna be
So-
involved with that one.
You know, we're gonna do it smart.
Defining a radius at this point is
We
first,
can-
second, third.
We can come back with, when we have the actual plans that we move forward with, we would be including council in that discussion on the different geographic areas.
Because I don't know how
think
much-
at this point, we can define a larger corridor for the project, and then probably be wise to have a workshop with the council prior to actually commencing with design, and we can define priorities at that point.
Sounds good. We can
Okay.
get it down in terms
Okay.
of the actual zone, the actual radius for the downtown, definition of downtown. I think that'd be worthwhile to define it a little
Absolutely.
more closely. Thank you.
Yeah, you know,
So I think we have consensus on that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Everybody good?
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay.
We'll move on to the Fresno County Consolidated Plan presentation.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Thanks so much for having us out here tonight. I'm Christy Johnson. I'm with the Community Development Division of the Public Works Department at Fresno County. And with me tonight, I brought a couple coworkers, Jonathan Abedian and Yvette Quiroga. We come out to Selma all the time, luckily, because it's a great place to be. We were out here in February for the Blossom Trail opening, which was very exciting. And but every 5 years we get to come out and do our consolidated plan presentation, talk a little bit about the CDBG program, and also we are required to do a 5-year look ahead where we get all of our partners to tell us what types of projects they'd like to see done with the CDBG. So I'm quickly going to run through our little presentation that we give before opening it up for the comments from you and from members of the public to support the work that we're going to be doing with the CDBG funds and in our consolidated plan for the next 5 years. So what is our consolidated plan? As I mentioned, it's a 5-year outline that identifies the community development needs in the unincorporated portion of the county and in our 6 partner cities. These needs are identified in the CON plan and addressed each year through the various grant applications done by the cities, districts, community groups, and individuals. And you heard some talk about the 2021 applications coming due soon. What is CDBG? It stands for the Community Development Block Grant. It's funded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, otherwise known as HUD. And the grant funds are used, as I mentioned, for eligible housing, community and economic development activities such as infrastructure, community facilities, housing rehabilitation, and public services. We also have another funding source called the HOME program, and that stands for the Home Investment Partnership Program. This is a program that's also funded by HUD and provides grant funding to assist with housing rehabilitation, home buyer assistance, and affordable housing development projects. Then quickly to run through some of the examples of CDBG eligible activities, economic development, which is what you're talking about with the downtown, residential and commercial building rehabilitation, water and sewer system improvements, storm drain improvements, public works improvements such as streets and sidewalks, which we're currently starting a sidewalk connectivity project here, neighborhood facilities, community centers, parks and recreation facilities, American with Disability Act improvements, and community-based public services. Most important for all CDBG funded activities is they must primarily benefit low and moderate income people. Then real quick on the guidelines, needs are broad and may be addressed by one or more different activities. The needs identified in the CON plan will provide the framework for future activities. Each type of activity will have certain rules and regulations depending on which program it falls under, funding with either CDBG or HOME. And the specific activity eligibility requirements are addressed during the annual application process. Then just specifically for Selma, we have had in our partnership, the CDBG partnership between the county and the city of Selma, been able to invest over $11 million of CDBG funds since the program started in 1975. And then the 2 most recent CDBG projects that we've completed here would be the groundwater recharge basin and I hear a really nice restroom in Ringo Park. So at this point, we are here to answer any questions you may have, but we really would also like to get as many ideas. We call it our kitchen sink meeting, which is throw out any possible thing that you would like to see done in your area, and everything but the kitchen sink, because it's better to have too many ideas and too many things that could be improved. We obviously have more things that we could use the money for than we have funds, but if we can put as many of these ideas in our consolidated plan, then we don't have to come back and do an amendment. So we'd rather have 20 ideas and only get 5 projects out of them than 5 ideas and then you come up with a 6th or 7th down the road, and then it's we have to do an amendment. Still can do it, but it just makes it a little harder. So at this point, we're going to open it up to that, and I also am going to have Yvette Quiroga from our housing program discuss a little bit about the housing programs. I think you've gotten some of our literature that we're doing in Selma and that we'd like to make available to the residents of Selma.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you. I think I come almost every year just to remind you guys about our program, about our affordable housing programs, and I believe you guys all got this flyer. It says all about homes. I was just here on, I was last week, I was here every week now because I am having to fill in for my rehab specialist, and we just finished the job on Grove Street. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with that home that burned down a couple of years ago. It's just down the street, and we just finished. We just got the certificate of occupancy on Friday. The family moved in. It was a reconstruction, which is something we don't normally get to do because the house construction cost is so high. But because your values in your city are high, and we were able to get a contractor that came in real reasonable, we were able to rebuild this home for one of your residents that did not have homeowner's insurance. And the home had burned down, and he was an elderly man and had nowhere to live. And your city staff brought it to our attention. It did take us a while, I won't lie. I think even in the process, the house burned down a second time by the homeless people that were in the neighborhood and things like that. So it was a challenge. But if you drive by Grove Street, I don't know the exact address. I was trying to find it on my phone. You know, you'll just see it's brand new. They're so excited to move in that they've lived there forever. I think in the process, he went and moved in with his sister, and his sister's now moving in with them. So they're all happy. It's like a whole new family, and they were just walking around. We were doing the final inspection last week, and they're like, wow, we're getting a brand new house. You know, and the city staff was instrumental. If it wasn't for their involvement, I think the city actually paid for the fencing around it to secure the property at one point and some different things like that. But, you know, the city of Selma has been a great partner with our housing programs. I think we did for several years, for about a year or two, part of our flyers was actually putting an article from the city of Selma of another home that we helped. And there was like a major, almost a reconstruct, but it was a major rehab that we've done here. So, you know, like I said, you've been a wonderful partner with us. What we do is with the housing assistance, the housing rehabilitation program is where we give out loans to low-income residents to fix up their homes. We do anything from just you come in and do a roof or an AC or something like that to, like in this example, we rebuilt them a whole house. The payments are based on what they can afford, not on what we lend them. So it's not a 30-year loan, a 20-year loan. It just, you know, they are low-income residents, so we see what all their bills are, how much money they make, and how much they can afford to pay. So it's to make it affordable for the residents and bring up your housing stock in your community. And like I said, Selma's been very instrumental in getting residents involved and referring to them and everything. So we just want to continue to remind you of that. If you have code enforcement issues, if you have other things, you can invite them. And with, you know, we also have the rental rehabilitation program that we can give out loans for people who own rental properties, as they're willing to rent it to low-income residents and charge them affordable rents. Then we can help them fix that up again, a loan with 0 interest. You know, so for landlords, that's another great opportunity that we have. And we have our home buyer assistance program where we help people with down payment assistance to help purchase homes. And that gives the residents the opportunity to be a first-time home buyer. They only have to come in with 1.5% of the purchase price. So if they're buying a house of $200,000, I just use a number because it's easy to round, they only have to come in within that example $3,000 of their own money. And then we come in with the closing costs and up to 20% towards the down payment. And then they get the rest of the money from a bank. So that makes the loans affordable to your residents. And like I said, you've been a wonderful partner. And the most recent, you know, activity we did was the apartment complex, Shockley Terrace. And some of you were there at that event, and we're really excited. I was telling Christy, you know, I was like, I know Cordova's in Selma, but I don't remember the dollar amount. So Cordova was the largest affordable housing development loan the county's ever done. So that was another apartment complex that was done. It's, I think, 81 units, and it was a over $1.8 million loan that we gave that development. And then for Shockley Terrace, they received $700,000. So on top of the CDBG money you've received, you've also received over $2.5 million in just helping you build low-income apartments, and not to mention all the down payment assistance and the families that we've helped in those years. So like I said, in Selma has been probably one of our more active cities in utilizing the housing programs. They're first come, first serve. We've never run out of money where we've turned a client away. We've been lucky in that way. It is difficult to qualify because it is government, and, we have our requirements. You have to be low income, the house has to have equity, and we have to be able to fix everything that needs to be fixed. But we're here to be a partner in assisting you in meeting your housing goals, help get the information out to your residents. If you ever want to invite us to some events, or make sure we pass out flyers, or however we can be there, we're here to discuss that. Any questions on the housing component?
Does anybody have any questions? If a homeowner wants to remodel their homes too, would they be eligible for this?
Yes,
for this program?
that's the HARP program. Yeah.
Okay.
So the Housing Assistance Rehabilitation Program. We'll come in and paint it, put new countertops, do dual pane windows. We like to do energy efficiency. It's definitely better than the HEROES program or some of those other programs. We don't put in solar panels, but we will come in and we'll put in, new light fixtures, windows, and water efficiency. This is one of the things that HUD encourages that we do. And it's zero interest. So our program is zero interest, and the payments, again, is what they can afford.
And you come in and do a needs assessment, and then you hire all the contractors?
Yes, we bring in our inspector. They inspect it. They come up with the scope of work, what needs to, then the family and our rehab specialists will identify what we decided on. We have an idea of an in-house cost estimate, how much money we think it'll cost, and we go out to bid. And we invite the contractors that are on our list, and we're always open to inviting new contractors locally, as long as they're not debarred from the federal government. They can also join us, and then we manage the work to make sure it's done correctly. And your city inspector still will come and do their normal inspections, and permits are pulled, and so there's double inspections going on at all times.
Anyone else have any questions?
So I have not really about the housing, but it just came to mind. On the first presentation, you said CBDG activities, community-based public services. What's an example of that?
Let's say you want to do a community-based policing program. So I know the county, we use a lot of our CDBG funds to hire police officers to work in the schools. So that's one of the things that we fund our program with, is the sheriffs. And you can also you can use that for other community services if you want to expand your senior programs. There is a restriction that we can only use 15% of our full CDBG monies for social service programs.
Right. 15 or 50?
15%, and that is of the whole county allocation. So, so there would be some negotiations to be done, possibly if some other cities or the county is already using a certain percentage of that and saying, well, we want to use, $30,000 to create a new. It does have to be new. You can't supplant existing programs. If you pay for your senior coordinator right now, or your Boys and Girls Club that came and asked, that came and gave a presentation, if the Boys and Girls Club wanted to do an additional new program and they're servicing low-income residents, their clientele is low income, and you can document that, then they will be eligible, that you can fund that. But it has to be something new, above and beyond what they're providing right now.
So if we wanted to add a second resource officer to our schools,
Yes.
So we have one, we want to add a second one, we could use that to pay for our portion of that second one?
Correct. As long as the students that resource officer at that school is income eligible.
Okay.
So we would have to ask the school to provide us what the income is of those students. Let's say you have 2 elementary schools and one services a lower income and one doesn't. They might not be able to do any hours at that school. So if he does hours at this school that's documented that they're 51% low income, low mod, then they can qualify.
All right, thank you for the
Yeah,
clarification.
and more ideas. We kind of jumped to the housing without doing that idea. So definitely would love to hear more. Like as Christy mentioned, we need to document all of that. So I think one of the things we'll put in is definitely public services. But what kind of other activities are you guys interested in? It sounds like economic development is something you're interested in. We would definitely want to put that on the list, even though you're looking for other funding. There might be some little augmentation. You might want to put 50,000. You got a grant and need to match it. Something like that. Your CDBG money could be used.
Anything with water and sewer?
Oh yes, infrastructure is very important. Water,
Storm drain.
sewer expansions, lighting, roads, sidewalks.
Sewer line remodel, would you help to rehab existing sewer lines?
Yes.
Okay. And then we get about 230,000 for block grant money. How much
Annually?
does the county get?
The
And how much would be available to Selma?
The way it works is every year, depending on HUD's formula, that when the federal government is proposing their budgets, they say this is how much is going to CDBG, how much is going to home, and they have a formula. If the federal government budgets, $10 billion to the CDBG program, they use your housing data, they use your low-income data, and they use for your housing, they use your housing stock, and then they also use your overcrowding. So they use all that information, and that's how they come up with how much the county as a whole gets. And we use the same exact information to then split up the money. So let's say the county gets $2 million as a whole, then we use the same formula, and then we split it up. So based on your data from the census is how you get your money. And historically, as they're saying, you've gotten a little over 200,000, but that's if the feds decide to fund the same amount. The president has proposed $0. Congress has proposed an increase. It's been like that for years, and we never know what happens till the end. So we anticipate the same unless we know something drastic has changed.
So it sounds like it's program driven. We just need to ask for things.
Yes.
To
So
get
as
money in
we
addition to the
as we get the
230.
money, we calculate it. Then we tell you, the city, this is how much money you're getting this year based on what HUD gave us in the same formula. And then you, at this point, like your staff was asking you, say, okay, we want to use this money for this or for that. We have to provide to HUD a 5-year plan. And that's what we're doing right now. We're writing for, it's for not this year, but the next year. It takes us a year. And that's what we wanted to put anything and everything you can think of. 3 years from now, you might decide we want a new pool. We want recreation stuff. You know what I mean? We want to put recreation, parks. You just
center,
did parks.
absolutely.
Just throw out
Parks.
everything and anything. Because what we do is we just make a big list. City of Selma said they'd like all these things. And then when you submit your application in the third year of the 5 years, okay, they want to do, a child playground area. Well, they said recreation and parks. It's there. It fits. They already identified that as a goal.
So this is over and above that usual 230 that
No,
we get
it's the 230.
It's part
How
of
we
it.
use it.
It's how we have to do a 5-year plan on how you're going to use it the next 5 years.
So the homes you built, though, were they covered under the CDBG money that we had in the past, or was that a different program?
The home money, the home program is the housing monies, and that one is given to the county, and we don't allocate a specific to every city. It is a bucket of money, first come, first serve. So if an applicant from the city of Selma comes and they're in line and I have money, then I fund them if they meet the requirements. If an applicant from the city of Kerman comes in line, then we fund them. So all of our partner cities for the housing program money is just first come, first serve. The only money that is competitive, I would agree, because we always need more money, is for the apartments. Because the apartments, they want $1 million. And we actually only get 800,000, a little between 800 to 900,000 in the home program annually.
Okay.
So we fund one apartment complex about every year and a half, 2 years, unless we receive a lot of repayments. If we receive repayments, we have more money and we're able to fund more.
I have a question
I was
myself.
gonna have a question
What
too.
about a facility for like the homeless? Do they fund?
Under CDBG? Yeah, that would more than likely it's very difficult to do a facility for the homeless. We can do more research on that and let you know, but
Okay.
it falls more under the emergency shelter grant, which is managed by the Department of Social Services.
Okay.
And most of those funds are provided more like they're using it for vouchers and things of that sort. For like, so if people are homeless, they might provide a voucher to live in an apartment, in a hotel for a couple of nights until they try and find them more permanent.
Yeah,
Into emergency shelter grant, how about rapid rehousing?
That's also funded through
Through
ESG, I
ESG.
believe, yes.
I was gonna ask you one more question here.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about the renters apartments, and let's say there's, in the community of Selma, there's several apartment complexes that are part of the low-income housing. Will they qualify, like, we pick 1 year, one apartment to renovate it, roof or whatever, and then following year, take another apartment in the city of Selma, low-income operational, needs assistance. Do you do it that way, or
So
how's
you're
that work?
talking about a multifamily apartment,
Multi-apartment, yes.
like how many units?
Probably they're over 40 units.
Okay, so that would fall under our affordable housing development, and that is something that we can do if they're already receiving funding through HUD or through other things. Some funding cannot be overlapped, so it would depend on
That's
what.
what I'm
yeah,
that's what I'm
so it
asking.
depends what their other funding sources are and what what our money would come in. So it all is very complicated.
The reason why I say that, because people on low income, people are on a fixed income, and you're trying to find ways to assist them in ways. That's why I asked that question.
Yeah,
If
our
there's-
rental rehab program is for units that are 4 and under, so
Yeah.
more like fourplexes and duplexes, and even people that might just have a one unit. So that application is much simpler. It's kind of like our rehab program, where we help someone that owns one unit. Like I said, the larger apartment complexes, the city of Selma doesn't get an allocation of money. The whole county gets, let's just call it $1 million with the money that we collect. And if there is an apartment complex that wants to do what's called a major rehab, they can apply to us. We would have to put restrictions on the rents and things of that sort as well. And our money is over the counter, so they can apply at any time. But most of the time we do a NOFA because most of these apartment complexes are applying through the state tax credit program.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. They are to the state.
Yeah,
tax
so
credit.
they're doing the state tax credit program. The county, because it is first come, first serve. I don't think it's fair if someone turned in their application at 1 and you turn in your application at 2, you get funded because you came in at 1. So when it's that and everybody, our funding is called gap financing. They're supposed to go get all the money they can from everybody else. And if they have a little hole to make the project work, then they come to the county. We're like, okay, you're short $200,000. We'll lend you the $200,000. And it is a loan. 0 interest in it, but it is a loan. And so then we would be able to fund it and then move forward. But since they're all in the same boat, they're all going to compete at the state level to get money. We want to fund the one that has the best chance of getting funded at the state level because we're competing throughout the state with all other rural counties. And so the way we do it is we then do a NOFA and say, okay, anybody who wants to apply for tax credit money and wants, home monies, and is one of our partner cities, please apply by the state. And they turn in their application, and we use the tiebreaker score of the tax credits who we fund because they're going to compete at the state level. So if you score a 12 tax credit, tiebreaker score, someone scores a 40, the 40 has more likely of a chance of getting funded than the 12. And so we need to make sure we are putting our money on a project that's going to get funded because our $500,000 or $1 million is not going to make the project work.
And the reason why I'm asking that question, because you want apartments to be affordable to also, but you don't want to create a slum in your community. You know what I'm saying?
Oh no, I agree.
And you wanted to beautify the existings that need help them. Because you don't want, once you create a slum, it's gonna be different.
It's difficult.
It's hard to clean up. You have issues there, and it creates more trouble than it's worth.
With our program, we go out there annually. We inspect the units. We review the files to make sure they're following the rules and regulations. And we do work very closely with them to make sure that there isn't any issues. If there's any complaints and things of that sort, they let us know. We work closely with our cities. If they have concerns, they reach out to us because if they're not in compliant, one of the things of our loan is you must maintain the property. And if they don't maintain the property, then we tell us pay us back our $1 million. And they don't have $1 million to pay us back. So then they need to become back in compliance in order to do that. So we have a hammer that maybe other people don't have, and we want to make sure they're being maintained. And as I said, we come out once a year, and we inspect the units, we walk the properties, we see what we're doing. I was mentioning to Christy, I go, yeah, when Cordova was under construction, it was actually an eyesore because it's in the more of the industrial area. And I remember we dug up tons of tires. I go, it was literally a dump before we built those apartments there. And you're able to, and they've been able to maintain them, and they have them well maintained. And we hope that the same thing with the Shockley Terrace, that was just, they were able to tear down the older units and build up and add more units because as you have a demand. So, and that's the things that we work on. So they did what's called acquisition, rehab, and expansion. And we try and make sure that they maintain them. And if you have issues, just call us if there are any of them that we funded.
And the reason why I ask because the state of California wants the affordable housing in our communities. And that's why I'm asking that question, we have to find a way to create this affordable housing, not just in the city of Selma, but other cities as well. So we're all in governor's made it clear.
This is federal money, right? We're
Federal-
talking about.
yeah, federal
Yes.
money, yeah,
This
but
comes from the
yeah,
federal
but I
part
just want to
of
make
the
sure
state.
that, hey, if we can capture these dollars, you know, in the communities and make it happen, you know, that's what you want to do, create these avenues to help the communities, but also to eliminate some issues as far as renting, high rent, and, you know, affordable housing, and also, but yet a clean housing operation as well.
And we're very happy to come and help you whenever you have any ideas. You guys are exploring possibilities, because I know housing, as we've mentioned, is a very hot topic right now. And so we're here as your partner, you know, as a member of our JPA, and especially as we work with the developers and we work with a lot of the housing. We're more than happy if you ever have a workshop and you want us to attend.
Thank you. That would be,
That'd be
that might
great.
be very helpful in the
That would be.
future, because
Thank
we all have that common goal. And then in regard to some of the potential things that we'd like to put into the 5-year con plan, the things that have been mentioned here, economic development, parks, recreation, infrastructure, sewer, programs like facade improvement programs, if they can help with you know, downtown or different types of business, economic development. And then we also did meet with internally and discussed a variety of projects with engineering as well. So I don't know if you want to run through that list right now, or if we should send it to you. What would be council's desire?
We can run it
You're
with
looking-
us.
You have it?
Does the county need the whole project list? You need a list or just categories that we want to apply for?
Categories would be perfect.
Yeah.
But
let's
it
send
looks like
every
you have
category.
it. There's some potential street and alley improvement, storm drainage, trails.
So do you want to take a picture of that before you leave, or do you want us to email that to you
You
from the
can
city?
email it, that'd be great.
Dan can email it?
Parks, downtown beautification. This
Okay.
is, yeah, this is perfect, so we can, and then, you know, if there's any comments from the audience that they might have some
Okay,
ideas.
does the public have any commentary about these categories of financing for the CDBG for the next 5 years?
I believe we have one more topic to cover. You want to handle that? Okay.
I wanted to have Yvette talk a little bit about housing, but it's wonderful that we have this wide variety of things. But we do also, during this 5-year cycle, we're developing our impediments to fair housing, which is a requirement by HUD that we put together. So we are now preparing analysis of impediments to fair housing, and these can include government policies or procedures, language barriers, lack of affordable housing options, ADA accessibility issues, or anything else that will restrict the availability of housing options to residents. So you've already touched on a few of them, but if you'd like to add any other, because we talked about the lack of having enough affordable housing and some of the issues of rehabilitation of affordable housing, if you can think of any other impediments to fair housing choice that Selma residents and citizens have experienced, and any ideas that you have to help address these issues. If you can share any of those with us tonight too, we're going to add our analysis of impediments preparation to our 5-year consolidated plan.
Okay. Does council have any suggestions? You could incentivize the landlords financially. Could be more incentives.
Just find 'em.
Yeah,
And
infrastructure
fines on the
seems
other
to be
side.
a big challenge for housing development.
Can we use this money to help people or something?
So, if there's no more comments from the public, we're done, but we're certainly willing to take any other comments. And in your packet, our staff information is there. And certainly if you think of anything, or as Yvette said, if you have any questions for us, if you'd like us to come out and talk to people, we did recently send, Teresa, out to the city that the DSS is put out an RFP for eligible activities in our partner cities. And those are things, like Yvette mentioned, that you can use your allocation, but also the county is having a small a pot of money that's available for small programs to do things. In previous years, we've helped groups like Marjorie Mason and the Boys and Girls Club do outreach. Again, it has to be a new activity, and it has to be to an eligible activity to an eligible population. But it is available. Our county one, you can use city funds for it too, the city allocation, but we take a portion of our county allocation, and it's available to unincorporated areas that qualify, and then anybody in our partner city that has an agency that wants to look at that too. And I know that their deadline is coming up pretty soon for that application, but I did want to share that too.
Thanks. Thank you, Christy. Thanks, Yvette, for coming out tonight. Look forward to that workshop in the future. Anybody else have anything they wanted to ask from the public tonight on this topic of the Fresno County Consolidated Plan? Okay, with that, we'll move on to the consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered routine. The complete consent calendar may be approved by one unanimous roll call vote. For the purposes of discussion, any council member may have an item removed from the consent calendar and placed back on the regular agenda. The council will then vote on the balance of the consent calendar. Does anyone have an item they would like removed tonight? Okay, I would like to remove item C, consideration of the IGT. What a surprise. Is there a motion to approve items 1A through B and D through L?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Guerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Avalos,
Aye.
Councilmember Trujillo, Mayor Pro Tem Franco,
Aye.
Mayor Robertson.
Aye. Okay, item C, just a question on the agreement. Thanks for including this. Is this more the health plan provider agreement? Is this more about the percentages? It looks like more about the funding mechanism rather than how those funds can be used. It's more about, you know, how much Anthem gets as a plan administrator and how much DHCS gets, and the actual calculation for the capitation rate increases. Is this more about that? Because I saw a lot about that, but I didn't see a lot about how the funds are to be used. Are there different agreements for this?
There are different sets of agreements. There are two, one between two providers and then one with the IGT itself, the internal transfer. So there's a total of 3 documents.
Correct.
That are executed at once for each year.
Okay. And the contribution PMPM, it looks like there's a factor just applied to the estimated member months. Where do you get the estimated member months? Is it just a number from last year?
They provide that data. They actually go through and look at the information that was pulled and paid out and things of that nature. So they do that assessment.
And so the numbers that we're looking at on page 26 of 120, just for instance, the child non-MCHIP, the 411,442, that looks like a result of a calculation of the contribution, which looks like that's the federal share times the estimated member months. Is that dollars? Is that 411? Is that dollars, the non-federal share, the estimated contribution?
Yeah, the estimated contribution amount, that's the estimated amount that will be painted as that transfer amount.
That's the amount that they expect from the city.
Correct.
To pay. And then if you go down to the next one, so that one is
So that one,
CalVivo, which is formerly known or otherwise known as Medi-Cal.
mhm.
And then
That
if you go down to the next table, Anthem Blue Cross, is that Medicare or is that still Medi-Cal?
It's still Medi-Cal. They both run just part of the program themselves.
Okay. And so that 75, so that number, that 288,803 is what they expect to be sent to the DHCS for the plan that Anthem is the administrator for. Anthem's not the administrator for CalViva Health. That's a different.
They're two different
administrator, is that
entities.
correct?
They're two different entities.
Okay. So that's not really telling us what we're getting. That's telling us we got to send them.
Yeah, because the amount that you're going to get back can change. They determine how much they're actually going to fund up to, and that's
Okay.
where you'll get that dollar amount.
Do they actually send an agreement out to that effect, or do we just get a check in the next 12 months for the 19? This is for 1920.
This is for
1819.
1819. So we'll be getting a check for the projected amount at some point in the next 12 months.
Correct.
A projected number.
They'll evaluate the numbers, come
Actually,
to a conclusion.
Anthem and CalViva will get the check, and then they'll submit it within 30 days or something to the
Right.
to the city.
Yeah, they kind of complete the circle between the IGT and then the plan provider agreements.
So we've been getting the payments somewhere around between March to June. Within that time frame, we get the payment
March and
back.
June.
When we start to execute the transfers and things of that nature, I want to say January, February, and that's when we get the money back.
when would we conceivably owe money back as a city for this? Because I saw there were some mechanisms there where you can negotiate with with DHCS. You can negotiate the return back and just say, take it out of a future payment.
Right.
When would that happen?
Once they'll audit it, and that was actually brought to council, I think, a couple months ago when they audited, I believe it was 15, 16.
Mm-hmm.
And they made the statement then that if they made a mistake and we did not pay enough, they weren't going to require us to make that payment.
So for the 15, 16, but it looks like for the 18, 19, they're saying that we can require you to make that contribution.
Could, once they evaluate that, if they've changed, they can change their program and
I'm sure
make
contracts
that
change
determination.
every year, right? That's why they do the different contracts. And why do they do it every year? Why why isn't it like a multi-year contract? Because the capitation rates change?
Because it's based on the data that's pulled that are paid out to as well. So they do.
They use
so
annual
you're looking at
numbers,
the 18,
so
19, but you
because
get
it's
paid
annual,
for
it
it.
has to change annually.
Correct. So what happens when they did that audit and went back and looked at the information is because they did an estimate at that point in time. So they had to go back and reassess those numbers is what they did. So that's why they had to go back last time. But now they keep changing the program. You'll see it change.
Okay.
There used to be more documents that went along with this. They started to condense it and change that. So they've been changing it
Plenty of
periodically.
documents here.
Yeah.
And then there's the thing about the so you can, this doesn't really govern the money that we get, the prospective money, but there's something about not commingling or taking, sorry, on page 13 of 120, and I'm wrapping up here. These retained provider funds may be commingled with other governmental funding, Selma funds, for cash management purposes, provided that such funds are appropriately tracked, and only the depositing facility is authorized to expend them. Would that be fire? Are you the depositing facility?
That we would have to evaluate that.
Well,
I think, and-
it just means this has to go, but well, let me change that. It's just the entity itself that runs the program, so the City of Selma.
So that'd be the City of Selma. And then if you go to 3, it says both parties agree that none of these funds, either the initial funds or the federal matching funds, the excess funds, will be recycled back to the Selma's general fund, the state, or any other intermediary organization. Payments made by the health plan to providers under the terms constitute patient care revenues. So gloss that for me. So is that a restriction on how the funds can be used? Are these restricted to healthcare and fire department related expenses?
Healthcare services as a whole, yes.
Okay, so that's what that.
So what you do is you
paragraph
take
means.
you take the 18-19 year, you assess the healthcare services you had within that fiscal, and then make sure if you are able to match it up at that sense, then you've met your obligations.
Gotcha. So do you keep this in a I mean, how do you know that? Do you keep it in a fund that says restricted IGT money, or how do you make sure that we don't spend this?
We've never gotten to a point where we've not been able to match the expenditures with prior fiscal years. So we weren't tied to those restrictions in that sense because we met our obligations by providing healthcare services within that fiscal year. So as long as we're able to match those expenditures, then
City's
we're able to
never
move
owed
forward.
any money back, so it's always over-provided in terms of the numbers that it's provided. It's always gone over the projected numbers.
So, I mean, as that amount starts to get bigger, which you have seen start to get bigger,
Yeah.
there may be a point in time where we're receiving more and we might have that restrictions. But I'll do that assessment each year to make sure.
So we'll probably see the true-up numbers for 16, 17 coming up next year. Is that right?
They won't have to because they did it a year later. So again, it was really them going back and looking at the information. That 1 year that they went back and looked at the information is because they did estimates.
So
Now
it's
they're
their
not doing
timetable.
estimates.
It's their time. They decide
Correct.
based on whether they did an estimate or whether they did it on actual
Yeah, that's why
numbers.
they're not doing estimates anymore because they had to go back and do that one.
Seems
So
like double work.
It is.
I mean, it helps the cities because you get the funding more immediately, but you could end up owing money back if you spend it in the meantime. That part that
Well, in
you
that
didn't-
sense, Chief's right. They
that you
weren't going to
spent.
change anything or do anything, but they were going to go back and reassess. So,
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, any other questions on the IGT? Is there a motion to approve item C?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a
item
second?
C.
I'll second it. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Guerra,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco,
Aye.
Councilmember Avalos,
Aye.
Councilmember Trujillo, Mayor Robertson.
Aye. Okay, well, with that, we will move on to a public hearing event tonight. During the public hearing, the mayor will first ask for staff's comments and reports on the item being discussed. After staff's presentation, he will then open the hearing to public testimony. He will then close the public hearing, at which time no member of the public shall address the council unless specifically asked by a member of the council through the mayor. City council will then discuss the matter and take action on the item being considered, which is consideration of a resolution amending the schedule of fees and charges for city services.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. The item I have before you is, this is an item that we do every year. It's reassessing our user fees. And what we do is really take a look at our labor numbers and what those increases are, and take that factor into account and readjust our user fees. So for example, if one of the MOUs got a 3% increase, any one of those individuals is within the user fees calculation, we take those assessments up that 3%. So that's what you see here. One thing I do want to remind you about the user fees is during the budget process, you approved for the city to go out there and do a new user fee study. So these will, as a whole, will get reassessed completely, and we'll bring them back to you. So, is there any questions?
Okay. Any questions from council on the actual user fees themselves?
Yeah, there was no major big changes throughout this fee.
There were, if you look at page 99 and 120, the only kind of major percentage-wise increases I saw was the CUP, conditional use permit, changed from $3,190, $3,190 deposit, required to cover labor at fully burden rate plus actual costs incurred. That went to $5,000. Deposit required to cover labor at a fully burden rate plus actual loss incurred. Is that just based on increases in staffing?
Staff time.
In the building department and staff time to issue a
Consultants' time, yeah. I mean, a CUP's got to go through the full process of going to planning commission and things. There's a lot of work that goes behind that.
And that's what these fees reflect, the actual staff time.
Correct.
To process these documents or instruments. The second one is the same thing, an administrative conditional use permit review. It nearly doubled from 1,058 per app to 2,100 per application. Is that the same logic there? That's the
Yes,
same
it's
page.
just truing it up to get it a little more cleaner. And
Okay.
again, we're going to reassess this as a whole.
So
and
these
look
are
at
all
of
gonna
them.
change.
That's correct.
As soon as that study's done, you're gonna come back with a new set of fees.
That's correct.
Okay. And then, just as an item of note, on, page 95, the animal redemption, that's not, I mean, that's not even close, those numbers. I don't know if that's when the city did it, but it's $20 for the first time, animal redemption, 30 for the second, and 50 for the third.
Yeah, that was probably just back when
Plus-
the city did it.
Okay, plus $10 a day, all right. And like you say, those are gonna change after they do
That's
the
correct.
study.
Okay, so these are gonna change too, because I had a question in regards to the yard sales,
Mhm.
the permit. It says here, limited to 3 per calendar year.
Mhm.
And I know that going on Rose Avenue, I mean, there's this one house that does it every Friday, Saturday, every week. So I'm just wondering, that's not 3 per year.
Well, it's 3 per year if you're actually coming and getting a permit. So, yeah, there is 3 per
Right.
year, but most likely those individuals are not pulling permits.
Okay,
So we do actually track them. There's a spreadsheet at the front counter that utilizes and makes sure how many you actually got. So when there is 3, we do cut them off.
okay.
So, but again, it's them coming in and come and get them. So
So do you do anything about the ones that are abusing it?
that usually be a code enforcement issue. Usually it's on the weekend, so it's harder for us to track. But if we can, we do talk to people about that. Yes.
Okay.
So if we're getting a second code enforcement officer,
Yeah.
can we maybe put code enforcement on one Saturday a month to take a look at these weekend issues?
Well,
Is that a possibility?
back in the, I'll be on, let me clarify. Back in the past, when I was on council, we had our volunteer officers, that drive around, and they were checking for the yard sale violations and everything. So, and they stopped in, and I think some people, like you made a point where they pull 3 per year, but let's say the neighbor pulls it, but I'm going to have a yard sale right in front of your property. Even though they pulled a permit for their house on, let's say, 225-26,
That's fraud.
and, they
They
did.
put it on the neighbor's
They did,
same
you know what I mean?
big
So-
permit.
So I see that is happening, okay?
What are the penalties if you go over 3?
You just don't get them.
We don't issue the permit after 3. But to answer your question about what can we do about looking at the weekends, let us internally discuss, between our various resources, what we might be able to do. 'Cause there's, MOUs and scheduling, and so we can look at the resources, though, that we do have to see.
Sure. That sounds good. It just might resolve some of these problems with, weekend work that goes on. I think a lot of people know, used to be the car washes, remember? People would have the car washes, on the weekends when they knew code enforcement was going around.
Yeah,
So, be nice if that might be a possibility. Okay, if that will open the matter up to the public, does anyone have any comments about user fees tonight? If so, please come forward. Okay, with that, we will close the matter to the public and bring it back to the council. Does council have any further comments on this issue? If not, is there a motion to adopt resolution amending the schedule of fees and charges for city services? Is there a second?
I'll second
Call
it.
the roll, please.
Councilmember Trujillo. Councilmember Guerra.
Aye.
Councilmember Avalos.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco.
Aye.
Mayor Robertson.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Okay, with that, we'll take a 5-minute break, recess for 5 minutes, and we'll be back at 7:05.